welcome back. If you're new, my name is Niara Alexis and we're doing story time. Last time we did a story time, somebody actually asked, could I do a story time on like my time in New York? So I'm literally like going off the dome. Usually I'll have like a couple of like topics written down of like things I want to make sure I talk about, but I don't really have it written down. So I think I'll just tell you how I got to New York and what my reasoning for going to New York was and all of that type of stuff, okay? And all the makeup products I'm using today, I will link them down below. I'll try to remember to call them out to you guys and like the shades and everything, but I'll definitely have everything linked down below if I don't call something out. This is the OG Sculpted Complexion Stick in the shade Sequoia 13.5C. So my move to New York happened, I want to say like 2018. And I was having like a quarter life crisis, okay? I was 25. And I had graduated from college. I went to school for fashion and I was here in Chicago. I went to Columbia College here in Chicago, and I just remember feeling like, dang, like there are so many people that I graduated with like in my class that have moved to New York, and it had always been a dream of mine to move to New York, but like I was seeing them online like getting jobs at these companies that like I like would love to work at. Regardless of what anybody says, the opportunities like in fashion and I feel like in entertainment as well just are not as prevalent here in Chicago as they are in like a New York or LA. The pinnacle of like fashion here, with this, like you still have to remember this is still a very like Midwestern city, is like at the time it was Sears. Like if you could get a good job like when you graduated working at Sears, like was it like a super fashiony brand? No, not necessarily, but it was still within the world of fashion, and it was at that time still like considered like a reputable company. Now I don't know what Sears is doing. And this next part I'm gonna say is not to knock anybody, okay? The concealer I'm gonna be using today is two shades. I'm using Makeup by Mario concealer in the shade 440, that's the darker shade, and then 380 to like highlight. So I was seeing like my peers that were doing like really good, and like, well, not even really good, but I just saw that they had made the move to New York and they were working at these brands that I wanted to work at, because you really like can't go off of like what people show you online. But I was also seeing other peers of mine that were like staying in Chicago, like same as I was, and they were working like retail, which let me say, retail like has money in it. Like you could go on to be like a store manager, a district manager, all that stuff. That just was not the route that I wanted to go. I worked in retail all throughout college, and it was just not something I could see myself doing long term. And I was like, am I really about to use this degree? No, I'm not knocking it for nobody else. Am I about to use this degree that I just paid all this money for to continue doing a job that I got in college without my degree? I was just like feeling like really down about it. And this is like a couple years after graduation. Like I said, I was 25. So at this point, like, you know, you kind of like start settling in a little bit. Once you get like a decent paying job after college, you just kind of have like this feeling of like you can breathe, like you feel a little bit more relaxed. You're not like on the grind all the time, like looking for internships, opportunities here or there. At least I wasn't. And that job that I got after college was at Groupon. I actually was working, like when I first graduated, I was still working retail. I was working at Cole Haan, the shoe store, and I was like, you know, I just can't see myself doing this forever. I can't see myself working in retail for a longer than this. Like for college, fine, but like I just don't have the temperament and quite frankly the attitude to be dealing with people all day. I really don't. I'd be really nice out here to y'all. Mom just has an attitude. She has an attitude that she can step into real quick. And I was like, I had already had a few incidents at work where like customers had complained about me. I was like the angry mean cashier. So I was like, I don't y'all want me to do this forever? I don't know if I can do it. I had told y'all in a previous story time, like right after I graduated, I had started working at a modeling agency that I got fired from. So I was doing that. And then when I got fired from that modeling agency, I was working at Cole Haan like kind of full time, but I ended up getting a job at Groupon here. And the job initially wasn't in sales, but it ended up evolving into a sales job. And I hated my job. Let me just like say that. I was thankful for it because like I said, like being after graduating college and getting like a 9-to-5 job that like paid all your bills, like you didn't have to work multiple jobs to pay your bills. Like it was like, whew, like I can finally breathe. I can chill for a second. I can pick me up a little wine on, you know, a couple days a week when I feel like it. Like I have money in the bank. Like I feel secure. I could pay my rent by myself. My dad wasn't helping me anymore. Like I just felt a lot more relaxed, but I started getting too relaxed, like what I feel. I had wanted to move to, like, not even had wanted to, like I still had the desire to move to New York, but if you've watched any of my other story times, you know that I moved around a lot as a kid. I told myself like when I got older, I would like try to put down roots somewhere because as a kid, I didn't mind moving around so much, but I just didn't like that I never had a say so in it. And I was like, once I get old enough to control like where I'm going and like when I'm moving, like I'm gonna try to like sit still for a minute. I remember talking to my friend Des about it one day and just telling her like how like unfulfilled I felt in it, like how I just did not know like what I was gonna do and how I was gonna get to where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And I remember her, I will never forget her saying this to me, and she turned and looked at me. It's like a movie playing in my mind right now because I can literally see the moment that she said this to me because it literally like flipped a switch in my mind. She was like, you'll never do what you want to do if you stay here. And I was like, bitch. Like I low-key was like, how dare you? Because like in my mind, I was trying to find a way to make that happen in Chicago. Like I was trying to make a way to like the fashion world that I wanted in Chicago. And there just wasn't a way. Like on the magnitude and the scale that I wanted to be involved, there wasn't a way. But something about what she said stuck with me, and like I just kept thinking about it all night, and then the next day and the next, and I kept thinking about it. And like a couple days later, I just came to the conclusion, I was like, I have to move now. If I don't move now, and I was terrified to move because I had gotten so comfortable being here, and I was like, if I don't move now, I will never move. I will never leave here. I won't leave this job that I hated. Because let me tell you one thing, I don't like, this is the thing that I don't like about sales and why I did not like my job. I don't like the fact that like me having a job, just like keeping a job in general, is determined on how convincing I can be to other people. I didn't tell y'all what brow pencil I was using. This is a velour fluff and brow pencil. But it was a place that a lot of people would land right out of college, and they would have all these like classes and stuff like that, like to kind of teach you how to do sales or whatever, like with like at our job. But it's very much so a type of thing where it's like some people got it and some people don't. So I did not like that, and I was never in that position of like, oh, you're not about to make your quota. Like I could make my quota, but there would definitely be times where it was hard. So I just did not like that aspect about it. I was like, I want a job where it's not based on like if I can get somebody to do something for me. It's just based off of my own merit and how well I can do my job. I was also dating my now boyfriend at the time. We had just started dating, but a little bit of like backstory there. We had known each other for a very long time. And like I feel like he always kind of knew that I had like the desire to do that, but it just hadn't come up or whatever. And we were also kind of like long distance at the time too. He lived in Michigan, I was in Chicago, but like it wasn't that far of a distance. I told him, I was like, look, just let you know, I'm moving to Chicago. And I don't know why, and this is why I think it was like November, December, because I thought about it, and I think I told him like in January, and I told him I was planning on moving by like August, September of that year. Like I was giving myself like 9 months or so. Me and him had kind of talked about it a little bit before, like how like that's a place like we would both want to live at some point. But like he had never said to me like in the time like when we had started dating, like, oh, like I like when are we gonna move to New York or whatever. Like that hadn't come up as a topic of discussion. So I was a little scared to tell him. And when I told him, he was like, okay. Like, I think he like gave it a little while, whatever, thought about it. And he came back and he was like, okay, I'll move with you. And like, when I tell you, I had the biggest weight lifted off of my shoulders, because moving by yourself to a new city is hard and it's a lot of work and it's a lot of money. Like, it's all dependent on you and like what you can do. And I knew my family would help me. Like, my dad had helped me all through college. So like, I knew like if I needed help was there. But I was so hell-bent after I graduated college to just like get out from that. I didn't want to be depending on my parents or like depending on my dad for more than I needed to. This is the OG Hydroganic Sculpted Face Stick in Obsidian. So it's basically like a cream bronzer. So he agreed to move with me. And I was so ecstatic. I was so happy because that meant like, okay, like now we can afford probably like a better place than I could afford just by myself. And I started saving my money, and I've told this story or mentioned this, excuse me, in other videos before, but the little bit of money that I saved, it was not enough. I think I moved to New York with like $2,000 or $3,000 to my name. Like, in my savings. I had money in my checking account or whatever, but like in my savings, like money that I had like stashed away for this move, it was like $2,000 or $3,000. That's like 1 month rent. That's like a month's rent. It comes like August time, right? So like this is like when we decided we wanted to move like the beginning of September. So we decided like we need to go to New York to see it, obviously, and find a place to live before we get there. Also, at the same time, I was applying for jobs. My boyfriend had a remote job before remote jobs were super popular. So like he could move whenever based on like how much we had saved or whatever, but he could really move whenever. I was worried about going there with no job. So I was trying to apply for jobs online and stuff. In other cities, like even in Chicago, you can start looking for apartments like further out. Like maybe if you're moving in Chicago, I would say like maybe 3 months out, you can start like putting your feelers out there, just seeing what's available. You might see apartments that are available 3 months from now or whatever, right? In New York, it's more of like, you need to wait until like a month before to really start looking, because people are not posting their apartments that are available 3 months in advance. At least when we were looking, they weren't. Tanisha, who y'all saw get married and everything, she already lived in New York. And if you don't know, Tanisha was a roommate of mine my first year of college, and then we just remained friends all through college. So she already lived in New York. She lived in Brooklyn, in Bed-Stuy, and I remember calling her and telling her when I first decided to move to New York, and she was so happy because we were friends through college. And I would even say by the time I moved to New York, like me and Tanisha were like really, really close. But after we graduated college, I don't know what it was, but we just got way closer, even with the distance and everything. I told her that we were moving. She was really excited and she was really helpful and like just like laying out like stuff for us. Like she was the one that told us like, okay, come around this time to look for apartments because like what you want to see it's not really going to be available until that time and stuff like that. So we went, like, I want to say it was like the 2nd or 3rd week of August. The cream blush I just put on is Smashbox Halo. They sent this to me. It's their Sheer to Stay color tint, and it's the shade Wisteria. It's a very, very pretty pink. And my boyfriend, his aunt actually lived in New Jersey at the time. So we were saving money, right? And we didn't want to spend any more money than we had to. So he was like, I'm gonna stay with my auntie. You ask Tanisha if you can stay with her. So that way we didn't have to pay for a hotel, because hotels in New York can be really expensive. Especially like if you're trying to save for something. Like right now in my life, like I feel like I could pay for it and it not be an issue. But then like I wasn't making as much money, and like we're trying to save for this move, and like the rent that we know that we're about to pay, that's about to be way higher. My last apartment I had here in Chicago, It was a really cute little studio, redone and everything. I paid like $800 a month for that studio apartment. It was spacious. I knew I was gonna have to let that go. Okay. For setting powder, I'm gonna use two. I'm first using the One Size Ultra Pink setting powder, and then I'm gonna go in with the Laura Mercier banana, or not banana, honey. They always tell you don't pick the first apartment that you see. Like, don't do that. And why is that what we did? We ended up going with the first apartment that we saw. Now, we did see other apartments. And when I say we, I mean me and Tanisha, because like what me and my boyfriend didn't realize at the time was that, yeah, Jersey and New York are like right next to each other or whatever, but it's a lot more of a trek than you think. The apartments that we were looking at, first of all, we were looking in the same neighborhood that Tanisha lived in. Tanisha lived in Bed-Stuy. And the reason why we really decided on that area was because, one, we would be close to someone that we actually knew, but two, at the time, Bed-Stuy was like kind of affordable. I hear now it's not really anymore, but Bed-Stuy was like decently affordable in the sense of like you are not gonna get a shoebox for $5,000 a month. You know, like you're gonna get a decent size apartment, maybe close to the train, and you know, it's not gonna be crazy price. It's gonna be more, especially if you like don't live in New York. It's gonna be more than what you're used to, but it wasn't gonna be crazy. I just had no idea. Like she took, I don't know if she took days off of work, but it was definitely times where I'm like, this is a work day, it's work time, and she would be there looking with me at apartments. And we stayed in New York for a week doing that. Now, let me go get my bronzer. Hold on. I'm using this powder bronzer from Subtle Beauty in the shade Cocoa. So while we were also looking at apartments, or while I was looking at apartments, I also made it a point to like apply for a bunch of jobs like right before. And I wanted to see if I can get interviews for the week that I would be there. And I did. I think I got like 2 or 3 interviews. Now, here's the thing. Like I wanted to get a job, like a 9-to-5 like I had in Chicago, right? But I also knew that I've worked a lot of years in retail, so like maybe I can just get a retail job, like maybe at a higher end store, maybe they'll pay a little bit more, you know, I don't know. So I ended up going on I don't even say a bunch of interviews, but quite a few. The blush I'm using is the Maybelline Fit Me blush in the shade Berry, but I went on quite a few interviews and I didn't get any of the jobs. I was really disappointed, but we ended up deciding on the first apartment that we saw because we saw a bunch, and I left with like no job, and we got accepted and approved and everything, which kind of like scared me. Again, I was scared throughout this whole process, but I was again terrified because that let me know that you're going to have to move without a job. Like you don't have a job that you're walking into, so you're gonna have to quit your job here and just go out on faith, okay? And I was nervous about that because I had never done that. My parents had always said to me like, don't quit a job like if you don't have nothing else lined up, like. And I think I told my mom and she was like, what? Wendy was not feeling it. She was like, okay, but she was also like very supportive because she knew, both of my parents were, not even just my mom, my dad was too, because they both knew that this is something I had been wanting to do for a very long time, and they also felt a lot more comfortable about the fact that I was moving with my boyfriend because they low-key love him like a little bit more than me. So oh, and that powder that I just put on, this is the Maybelline Fit Me Matte and Poreless powder. I just put some down to like carve out my cheekbones and everything, and I use the shade Toffee. I'm using the Milani Gilded Mini eyeshadow palette, and this is in this Champagne Problems. It's a very nude. That's just who I am. Sorry. We start packing up my apartment because that was really the only thing like we had to do, because over the summer my boyfriend moved in with me in Chicago, and I was like, look, instead of like you trying to move from Michigan to New York and me trying to move from Chicago to New York, we just need to be moving from one place. So why don't you move here to Chicago and then we can move from here together. I bought me a one-way ticket to New York. Actually, my dad bought my ticket. He bought me a one-way ticket to New York. And at the same time, my lease at my apartment was not up. And I told my landlord that I was gonna be moving or whatever. And I didn't want to break my lease, so I would find somebody to sublet. Long story short, like every person I brought in for sublet, he gave them problems. And I think that he was doing it on purpose so that like I would be stuck in the lease or whatever. But the way my Lord be working, okay? So like the last person was like, had damn near signed the lease or whatever, right? And he was just being so difficult with them. And the girl ended up being like, she reached out to me. She was like, hey, I'm so sorry. Like, I know you need somebody to take over like your apartment. I need an apartment there, but like your landlord is not trying to work with me at all to get this signed. I cannot deal with this. So I'm so sorry, but I'm not gonna be able to take over your lease. I was gutted. And she told me that while I was in New York. So I'm thinking like, oh, I ain't got no job and I'm about to be stuck in this other lease. And I just signed another lease. Like I was like starting to like get really nervous about it. I did everything I could do. Now this glitter that I'm putting on my eyes is the Moon Dust by Urban Decay, and the shade Space Cowboy is really good, but this is the shade Lithium. It's very pretty. I was just like, look, I did everything I could do. I was like, I'm going still. I'm gonna have to just pack up this apartment and we just gonna have to see what happened because I've already signed another lease in another state. I don't really have a choice at this point. The morning that we're supposed to be leaving, we packed up my apartment. Like I literally got rid of so much stuff. I only packed like 2 suitcases. I packed like 1 suitcase to like, to carry on, or like, no, I think I had 1 suitcase to carry on or something. I had 2 suitcases I was checking, and we overslept that morning. Crazy, like, because we hadn't been like late for anything like that. I still had a dresser in my apartment. I still had a bed frame and a couch in my apartment. I still had a TV in my apartment. I still had so much stuff in my apartment, and our plan was to wake up early and to throw that stuff out so that the apartment was empty. Like at least I was leaving it empty. And we woke up so late, like we didn't have time to do anything else. I just put on some eyeliner from Persona, the shade Black. So like my plan of like just leaving like the apartment nice and clean was like completely out the window. We head to the airport or whatever, and we were not on the same flight. When I tell y'all, I was walking through the airport hyperventilating. Like I was so scared. Why does this eyebrow, it looks so much darker, right? Let me try to fix this. This is the Jones Road. I thought I grabbed my clear one, but this is the Jones Road brow gel in the shade Dark Brunette. Let me see if I can clean her up a little bit. I'm not even exaggerating. Like I had to like calm myself down. Like I was doing all of that, like, cause I had never done nothing like this before. This is the Smashbox Super Fanned Out Mascara. It's actually really nice if you need something to like really lift up your lashes. But I get on the plane, and remember that job I had that I hated? I had not quit the job yet, because the thing in sales is like if you tell them like you plan on quitting, like you think you about to give a 2 weeks notice, at least at my job, it was like, oh, you can leave today. So I was like, I need all of that money. So when I left work for the last time, I kind of like started to take home stuff with me like little by little, so it wasn't like obvious that I had cleaned out my desk or whatever. So I would take home one thing one day and one thing the next day. And by the time I left a couple of things there so it wouldn't look like, is she gone? Like, is she never coming back? Because some people did that. They would like pack up their whole desk and just leave and not tell nobody and then quit the next day or whatever. I got on the airplane and literally typed out an email on my phone giving my notice, saying like I was no longer working there, on the airplane on the way to New York. Like I didn't give nobody no notice because I wanted to get all of my paycheck. Landed in New York. I had my little boohoo cry moment when I landed and I saw the skyline, because I was like, girl, you're really here to stay. Like, you're not going back to Chicago. You don't have a job to go back to. You have an apartment technically, but there ain't nothing in there. Like, you don't have anything to go back to. You have to make this right here work. I feel like we're mostly done with my face. I am about to do lip liner. This is the NYX lip liner in the shade Espresso. Not using that one. It's basically nothing. So I thought that this is the Nova Beauty Brown No. 2 lip liner. So get to New York. Tanisha, we had the same setup kind of. My boyfriend went to Jersey and I was with Tanisha in Bed-Stuy. Tanisha so kindly let me stay on her couch because our apartment, we went like a few days earlier. Like we were supposed to move in on the 1st and we got there like, I don't know, a day or two before. We went into the city, signed our lease. We had an apartment, but we couldn't move into it yet because it was before the 1st. So they were gonna charge us extra per day if we moved in like a day early. So we was like, no, we good. It was not the best. It was a newly renovated apartment. The building was not the best. Like this was, if y'all watch previous story times, this is the apartment where somebody broke into our apartment and it happened to be our next door neighbor. I'm gonna use the Smashbox Halo Glow again on my lips. I tried this the other day and it came out so pretty. So I told you how I didn't have a job and I kept applying for jobs and whatnot, but what I ended up doing, because I worked in retail all through college and I worked at Cole Haan all through college, and up until like a year or two before this, I had still been working at Cole Haan part-time on the weekends. I went down to Cole Haan and I got a job there, and I think it was like a temporary job because I was still interviewing for like full-time, like 9-to-5 jobs. Isn't that such a pretty lip? And maybe like a week or two, or not even a week or two, like a couple of weeks into me working the Cole Haan job, I got a call to work at L'Oreal, which wasn't necessarily fashion, but it was moving in the right direction. Like fashion and beauty are like synonymous to me. This is the Milani Fruit Fetish lip oil in the shade Lychee Nectar. These are so pretty. They have new shades. First of all, it smells like a Jolly Rancher. You just want to eat it up. So I got my job at L'Oreal and I tried to keep working at Cole Haan like on the weekends part-time because I could have used the extra money because I wasn't getting paid that much at L'Oreal. But they were kind of like iffy about it. They didn't know me or whatever. They didn't know that I would actually show up to work on the weekends or whatever. So they were like, no. I was working at L'Oreal. I was making pennies, barely anything, but I was following my little hope and a dream that I had. And that's the time that I moved to New York. I hope you guys enjoyed that little story time. All the products I use on my face, I will link them down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.